as I remember them. I don't want to have to forward you those names. Not above it.
Not above and not below it.
All right, call to order. Call to order. 1.02, if you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. 2, approval of the superintendent's contract. 2.01, approval of the teacher contract of the amended for the employment of superintendent of schools from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees approve the contract for employment of Dr. Theodore Stevens as superintendent of schools. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. If you would like to come and address your new school corporation?
As a matter of fact, I would. I just happen to have some comments prepared. Well, good afternoon, School City of Mishawaka Board of Trustees. First, thank you for the opportunity to be the next superintendent of School City of Mishawaka. I look forward working with you, the community, the staff, and the students as we continue our journey in making School City of Mishawaka the premier school corporation in our area. A little history. In 2013, I interviewed with Dan Towner and Greg Hicksonball for the principal's position at LaSalle Elementary. The final step of that process was an interview with then Superintendent Dr. Terry Barker. After that interview, I was then offered the position. When I went to LaSalle, I was very excited to finally have the opportunity to have my own school. Up to this point, I had been an assistant principal and an athletic director, but I never had the autonomy to work with a staff and a building the way I saw fit. I give the administration at School City at that time full credit. They gave me just enough rope and support that I needed to do what I wanted at LaSalle. What was peculiar about LaSalle is that simple cliche, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I know early on the staff was very skeptical of this Dr. Stevens character that was sent to their world. You know, in the education world, once you become doctor, that is often code for being holier than thou. And that's something that all of us in the profession have to try to overcome. Years later, I learned that the staff at LaSalle also had a wager on how long I'd really go outside every day for lunch and recess duty. It was at LaSalle where I learned the most important lesson about Mishawaka. This is a blue-collar community where they respect individuals that work with them. I wanted everyone to be successful at LaSalle, not for my personal gain, but for the betterment of our students and the organization. It's a basic concept I have not forgotten, and I look forward to working with the Mishawaka family again. Again, not for my benefit, but truly to benefit the students in the community of Mishawaka. In 2015, the board accepted Dr. Terry Barker's recommendation for me to transfer from LaSalle to the Administration Center. I transferred to be the Director of High Ability Programs and Assessment, a role that Carolyn Freeman had retired from. Shortly after I started in July, Dr. Terry Barker resigned and Dr. Dean Spiker arrived. It was a very interesting whirlwind to see up close in 2015, and the folks here at the Ad Center could all agree to that. To my great surprise, Dr. Spiker took me under his wing. He provided me opportunities, in quotes, to become the technology director and the safety coordinator. Generally, the crew at the Administration Center at that time was short-staffed, and it seemed that most of the new work came my direction. In fact, so much so that the office coined a new phrase: when you had work assigned to you, you had just been Theo'd. In addition to Dr. Spiker, he brought along a cast of characters: Dr. Staley, Mike Pettibone, and Bill Welling, or as I called them, the senior citizen leadership team. I thoroughly enjoyed hassling the old guys, and I'm pretty sure they felt the same way most of the time. In 2016, the board accepted Dr. Spiker's recommendation for me to become the assistant superintendent at School City. We initially worked to pass the referendum in November of 2016. That was a monumental undertaking, But learning how Dr. Spiker and Dr. Staley orchestrated the various community groups to coalesce behind the why of the referendum was a phenomenal learning experience, better than any college course I had taken up to that point. Dr. Spiker provided me the opportunity to be on the campaign, which helped me to better understand the Mishawaka community, and it was always my personal goal to become the superintendent. And Dr. Spiker recommended that I be part of the AASA's Aspiring Superintendents Academy, which the board graciously allowed me to do. This too was a phenomenal experience, not to mention the 2 times I drove to Washington, D.C. and back with Bill Welling. Over 40 total hours of uninterrupted Bill Welling time. I mean, how do you put a price on that? So ultimately, I owe a huge debt of gratitude and thanks to all of the leaders of SCM that helped me learn up to that point. At this point in the story, you may ask, well, why'd you leave School City then? It's complicated, but the primary reason I left was to prove that I was capable of the superintendency in my own skin. I left SCM to become the superintendent of South Central Community School Corporation. The great Mike Pettibone told me, you can't be somebody else, you can only be yourself. Since 2018, I've called South Central home. As you might have imagined, the South Central community has been exceptional to me. It was a great opportunity to be a superintendent and lead their organization. It was an even greater pleasure to gain the trust of the board and earn their wholehearted support. And leaving a good school corporation and a good working relationship with the board is not as easy as it may initially appear. But at this point in my life and my career, it's about where I feel I can make the largest impact in a positive way. And that's part of the reason I want to come back to School City. My return to Mishawaka is interesting for several reasons. First and foremost, many have welcomed me home, which is greatly appreciated. But as a point of clarification, I am not from Mishawaka. I am from Logansport, home of the Berries. What I love about School City, that's right, is that people have treated me as if I were one of them. When the announcement was made public that I'd potentially be returning to SCM, I was amazed at how many people had my cell phone number, and they reached out with sincere gratitude about my return. Second, as I travel to schools to hear about SCM, I'm amazed at the gushing welcome I receive, and it is definitely a bit over the top. It's actually a lot over the top. But then people claim, oh, you're just too humble. But as a guy that has great difficulty telling you what I had for dinner last night, I'm impressed that people still remember me 4 years later. And to that end, I greatly appreciate that warm welcome, and it certainly does feel like home, and actually probably better than home if you really want to know. Returning to a workplace is not a first for me, and this would probably be the point my parents would be most proud to hear. In the summers between my undergraduate work at Purdue, I worked maintenance for Logansport Community School Corporation as a 18, 19-year-old man. I had the great pleasure of working with the maintenance crews during a wide variety of work, and quickly I gained a reputation as a young man who knew not only how to work, but I could be trusted to work unsupervised, which I guess is a big deal for younger people these days. Years later, they had an assistant principal opening at Columbia Elementary School, which was sort of a difficult school in Logansport. I took that position and was quickly accepted with welcome arms, in part because they remembered my work history on the maintenance crew. My parents always said, if you were a good worker, you'll be asked to return, which is the ultimate compliment. Whether it be baling hay, detasseling corn, or school administration, if you did good work the first time, you will be invited back. And if there's a single lesson I'd like my 4 children who are here today to learn, it is this one. If you didn't do a good job, it's pretty easy to pass you over. And if you did a good job, you will be invited back. The SCM board and the community largely know who I am. I'm a known quantity to all of you, and you are a known quantity to me. You've paid me the ultimate compliment in asking me to return, and I really appreciate that. I will make it a point not to disappoint you, and I plan to showcase that to our community in my work and actions as your next superintendent. So I want to thank you for that, and if you will indulge me away from the speech, I'd like to introduce a few people that came with me today. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
All right, so first and foremost, I'd like to introduce, behind every man, they say there's a good woman, and there's some cliches I could give with that, but most of those will get me in trouble. So my lovely wife, Heather, is right here. I'm sure she'll wave at the crowd. There's Heather. We were married 19 years 2 days ago, right? Huh?
Nice.
Congratulations.
Brownie points right there. That's how this is done. Before I get to the kids, my mother and father-in-law, Mike Huntsberger and Pam Huntsberger in the back. These fine folks provide countless hours of childcare and what I like to call general grandparent smothering. For those that are grandparents in the room, you can probably relate. It's out of control, but that's okay. That's another story for another day. But certainly appreciative of my grandparents showing up, or grandparents, not my grandparents, the children's grandparents, my in-laws. That's why I'm the second favorite son-in-law, right? So I always tell them I'm the second favorite son-in-law of the two son-in-laws they have. Finally, I've got 4 Stevens children, and they can just wave. I have Amelia, who is age 13, August, who is age 10, Oliver, who is age 7, and a little SCM connection. Heather walked around LaSalle on the first day of school in 2014, pregnant with Oliver. And the second day of school, Oliver was born, which would have been August 20th of 2014. You're impressed I remember, don't you? So he has a little Mishawaka connection. And then last but not least, Ezra, who is 5. Nice wave.
Hi, Ezra.
Interesting story about Ezra, which Annette can tell you about. Heather called on November 21st in 2016 that I needed to pick her up from work to take her to the hospital. But first, I wanted to have a quick phone call with Mr. John Ross. That took several minutes. If you know Mr. Ross at all, it took way more than a minute, which was fine because I wasn't in any hurry. I went, I got Heather, we made it to the hospital and had Ezra about 20 minutes later. And had we played our cards right, we could have made the news. The media really would have loved that story. But instead, we made it to the hospital. And yes, the ladies in the ad center were not impressed with my lengthy phone call with Mr. Ross. Do you remember that? I remember. Annette was not impressed with me that day, and that's okay. I probably deserve that. So with that, again, I really want to thank everybody for the opportunity. I think I've introduced the folks I want to introduce, and when we're done, the children have something in the cooler to give to the board members. So in that room, kids, is a cooler for them, and we'll get that taken care of momentarily. Thank you.
Well, I'll start this conversation. We are extremely excited to have you back, and you're always welcomed. And I think you've always been genuine in who you are and what you are and how you're going to serve the community of Mishawaka. And so I am grateful for you, and thank you for accepting the opportunity. Heather and the kids, I think you're all great, and I'm looking forward to getting to see you running around here more often. This is a big deal for us, and so I'm very happy. Sorry, Amelia, you don't have to come. So we are very excited to have you back, and thank you for accepting. If anybody else would like to say something.
You know, as last hurrahs go, I think this tops the cake. So this is my last hurrah is hiring you, and I'm going to step out, but I'm excited to see what you do for the school corporation. As I've told the rest of the board members last night, I plan to stay plugged in and help in any way that I can from Westfield. But I'm thrilled and excited to see where Mishawaka will be in the future.
I think what Holly said about being excited is an understatement, and I don't even know how to go higher than that right now. I think this is an exciting time for our community. I appreciate you. I mean, you're giving us a second chance just as much as we're, asking you to come back. And that's impressive that you want to come back. I appreciate the family. I think that this is always a family decision. I'm a parent of 4 children as well, so I understand that. So I'm very appreciative that you're all so welcoming to us, and we are wholeheartedly welcoming you.
The only thing that I would like to say is, of course, welcome, and you have a beautiful family, and I'm looking forward to get to know you a little bit better. But when I met Theo officially for the first time, he says, "Oh, I remember." He goes, "I was in your basement." I'm like, "Oh my God, he was in my basement." So I feel that. Thank you for not judging my basement the way it looked at that time. But again, I can. I echoed everyone else's sentiments so far. Thank you for allowing us to have you back, and looking forward to good things to come.
Theo, Heather, and kids, welcome. Glad to have you back.
Before we adjourn the meeting, does anyone else have anything they would like to say? Then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I don't have a gavel. I know.
If he's ready, I think he'll just kind of start.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you guys are,
Questions, then feel free to.
yeah,
You guys good?
they're ready to roll.
Awesome.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the School City of Mishawaka Board of Trustees for the opportunity to be the next superintendent of School City of Mishawaka. I look forward to working with the community, the staff, and the students as we continue our journey in making School City of Mishawaka the premier school corporation in our area. The next 10 months are going to be extremely busy, working through complexities of both another school year and making the case to the Mishawaka community pertaining to our need to pass another referendum. So with that simple statement in mind, I'm happy to entertain additional questions that you fine folks may have.
What's the eggs?
Well, at the last board meeting, the board president had inquired, she knows I have a small farm and some chickens, if I happen to have any eggs. So I brought her some eggs, and then I think the other board members were sort of jealous that they did not receive eggs, so I made sure to bring everybody some eggs this time around.
Why'd you leave? Why'd you come back?
Sure. Well, I left in part because I wanted to gain some experience as a school superintendent, as I said in the previous speech, in my own skin. And so going to South Central really provided me that opportunity to do that. It's a small school corporation, but a really great corporation to learn from the community, learn from the board. And honestly, this was an opportunity to come back and work in a community that I'm familiar with, that's familiar with me, and also try to do some more great things up here at School City. So I'm really looking forward to the challenges and opportunity that are ahead.
Caring?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The commitment to caring? I'm trying to remember how to phrase it.
Commitment to caring.
You talked about not how much you care.
Oh, yeah. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is referring back to my time at LaSalle Elementary School, but it's true today. I want to get to know the community, get to know the staff, get to know the people here in Mishawaka, again, as close as you can to a personal level, and working with our students and staff in the community.
What's on tap this summer now that the transition begins?
Sure. So we're in the, well, you'd say sort of the early stages of the referendum, but at the same time, that ball starts rolling pretty quickly here. So that is certainly on tap pretty quickly. In fact, I'm meeting with Dr. Spiker after we're done here today about the Community Collaborating Committee, and then I'm going to that meeting at 5:30 tonight at John Young to try to get myself up to speed on some of the changes and some of the things that have occurred in the past 4 years as we begin to build the case for the next referendum.
What did your parents teach you about they'll ask you back?
Yeah, if you do good work for an entity, or in my case, my younger years as a farmer, if you do good work, that employer will ask you back the second time. And if you don't do good work, you wouldn't necessarily be invited back. And I mentioned in there baling hay and detasseling and school administration. But yeah, when you work for a neighbor farmer, and if you aren't a good employee, they aren't going to have you back a second day. So you better do a good job if you want to come back again. And that's where I really feel fortunate that they felt that I did good work the first time here in Mishawaka, that they've invited me to come back a second time.
You're up here at the top rung, but you've worked the bottom rung before?
I have, yep. In Logansport, I've done summer maintenance. So yeah, I've string trimmed, painted walls, cleaned toilets. I've done all those things, and that's absolutely fine.
Do we get eggs too?
I did not bring eggs for you. The chickens may need a little more lead time, but maybe next time I can work that out when you come to watch the chicken washing before the fair. Maybe we can get you some eggs that day. Yeah.
Is there anything about you, something that is unusual, unique to yourself outside of school that you want the families to know? Like, who is Theodore Stevens outside of school?
Oh, I don't know if there's necessarily, I don't find it unique, but I do enjoy people. I mean, I enjoy talking to people, listening to people. That's really not anything that's incredibly difficult for me. Everybody has a story to tell, and I feel like it's important to try to listen to that story and listen to that perspective and go from there. I don't know if that's unusual, but maybe some people might find that to be the case.
technically in the media, but I'm here. What would you say to students, families, staff members about you coming in and what you're most excited about?
Well, I'm most excited about continuing many of the great initiatives that are already in play in School City of Mishawaka, and just trying to be as supportive as we can from central office to the initiatives as they take place in the schools throughout the community. Everybody feel all right? Got enough to work with? All right.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys feel all right? You feel okay? You're not ready to strangle me yet?
Oh, you're good.
You said
I think
what?
someone came to say hi to you.
Hey! There he is. How are you doing?